What's up, everyone? It's Bones here. In today's video, the Supreme King awakens once more in an attempt to rule the limbo dimension that is the TCG OCG before a ban list drop. I present to you some combos with a couple of different ways that you can play the deck. But first, if you're a fan of in-depth combo videos, new set coverage, and occasional fun stuff that we like to do on the channel like quarterly tier lists, then inflict some nightmare pain on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons by clicking on them so that every time they wake up, the first thing they remember is how you destroyed them. The first card that we have here is Samsara Regenerating Lotus, a level 1 Dark Fiend that reads, you contribute this card, special summon one Yubel monster from your deck. So it's a lone fire blossom for the archetype basically, and during your opponent's turn when a monster effect is activated while you control a Yubel monster quick effect, you contribute this card and that effect becomes destroy one Yubel monster on the field. Then during your end phase, if you control a Yubel and this card is in your graveyard, you can either add it to your hand or special summon it. You can only use each effect of Samsara Regenerating Lotus once per turn, and this is a really nice card because the special summon allows you to get that tribute off for your Yubel, and if you have the chance to keep it onto the field, and you happen to play the other forms of Yubel, you can end up using the effect on field to destroy the Yubel and get into your other terror incarnation. And we're going to start this one by normal summoning the Samsara Lotus. You do need the discard for this combo, and you'll see why, but we're going to special summon out our next new card, the Spirit of Yubel, similar to the Spirit of Neos from the Neos deck. This card reads, cannot be destroyed by battle, also you take no battle damage from battles involving this card. If this card is destroyed, you can special summon one of your Yubel that is banished or in your hand, deck, or graveyard. You can only use each of the following effects of Spirit of Yubel once per turn. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned, you can take one spell trap from your deck that mentions Yubel and either add it to your hand or set it to your field. And for obvious reasons, this is just a nice card that allows you to play through Droll, as you don't have to add it to your hand. It also allows you to get a Yubel monster that's on board, which pairs well with one of your other cards, as you'll see momentarily, but we're going to use its effect now, which will allow us to set the Nightmare Pain, our next new card. And this is a continuous spell that reads, during your main phase, you can destroy one dark monster in your hand or face-up field, and if you do, add one Yubel or one card that mentions it except Nightmare Pain from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Nightmare Pain once per turn. While you control a Yubel monster, all your opponent's monsters that can attack must attack a Yubel monster. Your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from battles involving your Yubel monsters instead, and being forced to attack into your Spirit of Yubel is nice. Since they do take the damage, your Yubel can't be destroyed by battle, and that's kind of the gimmick that this deck is going for, where you're just wanting to put your Yubels on board so that you can either attack into your opponent or have them attack into you so that you can just easily wipe them out. Though it is important to note that your opponent can counteract this by putting their monsters in defense position. So we're going to continue by activating the Nightmare Pain, and then we're going to use the effect Destroying the Spirit of Yubel so that we can add ourselves our next new card, and this one is called Eternal Favorite. It reads, once per turn, you can activate one of these effects, but you can only use each effect of Eternal Favorite once per turn. Special summon one of your Yubel monsters that is banished or in your graveyard, so being able to special summon it back from the banished is really nice, as you'll see for plenty of reasons later on in the video, but neither player can activate cards or effects when that monster is special summoned. It's also important to note that you're not able to get the Spirit of Yubel's effect when you special summon it off of this because of that, which can seem like a hindrance, but when you pair it with the Nightmare Pain and then you have your opponent attack into your Yubel, just being able to even revive your Yubel is pretty nice. But the other effect is pretty insane, because if you control a Yubel, discard one card and send this face-up card from your spell and trap zone to the graveyard. Fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters on either field as material, including a Yubel monster. So it's technically super poly in the form of a trap. So we're going to then be able to use the effect of the Spirit of Yubel, which will allow us to get our OG copy of Yubel, set the Eternal Favorite, go on to the end phase where we can use the Samsara in order to revive itself, get that tribute for Yubel. That's why you want to use the Samsara first, as we're then going to go on to our opponent's turn, and then we're going to watch them do whatever, as they're going to normal summon a monster. We can then use the Eternal Favorite whenever you want to use it, we'll use its effect in order to get the fusion summon, as we're now going to go into our next new card, the fusion, and I'm not going to pronounce this, it's just Yubel for me, but a Yubel monster plus 1 effect monsters on the field, and that's 1 plus effect monsters, so that means that if your opponent has 5 monsters that are all effect monsters on board, and you have a Yubel monster, that means that you can just wipe them all away and turn this into the big Yubel. So if this card is fusion summoned, you can inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each fusion material used for its summon. Cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Also, you take no battle damage from battles involving this card. At the end of the damage step, if this card battled an opponent's monster, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that opponent's monster's attack. And if you do, banish that card. So this is another card that enables that battle phase OTKs type stuff where with Nightmare Pain they have to attack. Then at the end of the damage step, if it battles an opponent's monster, you get that additional burn damage as well, while also having the on-summon burn effect. So just like that, damage can accumulate pretty quickly. But with that, I'll take you on to the next combo. I believe this is the last new card that we have out of the ones revealed so far, Geist Grinder Golem, and you can only special summon 1 Geist Grinder Golems once per turn. You can reveal 1 Yubel monster in your hand, special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field, then you can special summon the revealed monster to your field. Once per turn, if this card battles a Yubel monster during damage calculation, your opponent gains 3,000 life points, and if you special summon a Yubel, while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card to your opponent's field. And the point of this is to give your opponent a beater so that you can get into OTKs like this. As you're going to see, we're going to start by activating the Geist Grinder Golem, special summoning it out onto our opponent's board, special summoning out the revealed Yubel, or the Spirit of Yubel, and then we'll be able to use its effect for the Nightmare Pain. As you saw previously, the Nightmare Pain popping the Spirit of Yubel is an important play in this deck, as you're able to get into any of your cards that mention Yubel. As we're going to special summon out the OG copy of Yubel off of the Spirit of Yubel, then we'll be able to normal summon the Samsara Lotus, as we're going to bring out a copy of Spirit of Yubel, and now because of the Nightmare Pain, what we can end up doing is attack into the Geist Grinder Golem. We'll gain 3,000 because of the Geist Grinder Golem, but we'll also be able to inflict 3,000 because of the Nightmare Pain and the Spirit of Yubel, along with the Yubel having its effect in order to attack and inflict the damage and stuff, as we're then going to go into a rank 10 via the Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon, and now we can inflict 2k more damage, as we're going to be able to FTK our opponent like that technically, even though we're going second in this particular replay. So this next one, I want to show off what happens with Nightmare Pain and Samsara Lotus, and these are 2 of the best consistency cards that this deck really could have gotten, in my opinion, as just having a generic Dark Destroyer that can search a card that mentions Yubel is something I would like to point out probably has future implications too, and that's something that could end up making this card or deck look really good in the long term. But from here we're going to end up setting our next new card, the Mature Chronicle, and each time a Yubel monsters and or a monsters that mentions Yubel is special summoned, place 1 Chronicle counter on this card. You can remove up to 5 Chronicle counters from your field to activate one of these effects. Special summon 1 Yubel monster from your graveyard with removing 1 counter, remove 2 counters in order to add one of your banished cards to hand, remove 3 counters in order to banish 1 card from our deck, 4 counters in order to destroy 1 card on the field, 5 counters to add a Super Poly from our deck to our hand, and you can only use the effect of Mature Chronicle once per turn. Now, unfortunately, this does require a bit of setup, and we don't have as many combo cards for Yubel in order to spam them out quite like that, so it does take some turns of setup in order to get those effects. So we're going to activate the Nightmare Pain, use its effect popping the Spirit of Yubel, get the Eternal Favorite, as we'll then use the Spirit of Yubel, get ourselves the counter on the Mature Chronicle by special summoning out the Yubel, set our Eternal Favorite, bring out the Samsara Regenerating Lotus, and this will also give a counter to the Mature Chronicle because it's a monster that mentions Yubel, as we're then going to use the Yubel in order to tribute off the Samsara Lotus. Then we can go on to our opponent's turn, where you can use your Eternal Favorite at any point to either revive your Spirit of Yubel, or you can fuse away with your opponent's cards if you have that discard. Now for this next one, this combo consists of Nightmare Pain and Spirit of Yubel, and I think that these these are two of the more important cards in this strategy because the Nightmare Pain is just a Rhoda, but having the ability to destroy the Yubel from your hand allows you to get the Yubel on board, and just being a card that synergizes with the Nightmare Pain the way it does is really nice, as we're going to set the Eternal Favorite, use the effect of the Yubel, which will pop itself in this scenario, and do keep in mind that we haven't used our normal summon at this point, so in other hands you'll have something to either tribute off, or you can even just pop the Yubel itself and get it back via the Eternal Favorite on your opponent's turn, which will give them something that they have to ram into via the Nightmare Pain. But again, this is just a 2-card combo where you'll still have 3 or 4 cards left to play with. Now for the first variant I want to show, we have the Bestial Lubellion along with Samsara Regenerating Lotus. The Bestial stuff is really nice because, as you saw, Eternal Favorite can special summon from the graveyard or banished, and being able to banish your Spirit of Yubel and stuff off of your Bestials is just very synergetic for this archetype, as we're going to use the effect of the Nightmare Pain, popping the Spirit of Yubel, as we'll get ourselves the Eternal Favorite. We can then use the Spirit of Yubel, as we'll get ourselves the OG Yubel. Then we can activate Lubellion, as we'll search ourselves the Magna Hut, use the effect of the Magna Hut, banishing the Spirit of Yubel. From there we can use the effect of the Magna Hut. We'll then tribute it off for the Lubellion, and now from here you can use the Lubellion in order to get yourself branded Beast, you can get yourself branded Regained, and then we can set our Eternal Favorite, go to the end phase where we'll revive the Samsara Lotus, then we can use the effect of the Yubel, tributing off the Samsara Lotus, as we'll get ourselves the Druis Worm off of the Magna Hut, and end our turn on this. Now for this next combo, we have Samsara Lotus plus Fenrir, and this is just another version of the deck that you can play, though quite frankly I don't know how long either of these versions will last because of an upcoming potential ban list before we even get this set. We're going to special summon out the Fenrir, use the effect of the Samsara Lotus to bring out the Spirit of Yubel, use the Spirit of Yubel, which will get us the Nightmare Pain, and the cool thing here is that we can play around Droll without having to sacrifice anything really, since the Fenrir is a disruption with or without its search. So we'll get ourselves the Eternal Favorite, use the effect of the Spirit in order to bring out the OG Yubel, use the effect of Fenrir now in order to get ourselves the Kashtira Riseheart, and now we can use the Kashtira Riseheart in order to give us access into a rank 7 this way. So I'm going to go into Shang Tsung, as we're going to then end our turn on this with the Eternal Favorite set. We'll get a Kashtira monster on our opponent's turn during the standby phase. The Yubel will be in the graveyard because it has to destroy itself in the end phase if we don't have anything else that we contribute off for it. But again, this is just a 2-card combo meant to be built on with the rest of your hand. Now this is another hand that I want to show with the Lubellion or the Bestial version, and this also shows Branded Fusion, which I think is a solid card for this deck, as you don't really do any extra deck special summoning, so Branded Fusion is an easy plug and play in my opinion, as we're going to use the Spirit of Yubel to get ourselves the Nightmare Pain, activate the Nightmare Pain in order to pop the Yubel, get ourselves the Eternal Favorite, as we'll then use the Spirit of Yubel in order to bring out the OG Yubel, then we can activate the Lubellion much like previously, where we'll get ourselves the Magna Hut, banish the Spirit of Yubel since the Eternal Favorite can still special summon it back from the banish zone, as we'll then be able to use the effect of Lubellion to get ourselves the Branded Regained or the Branded Beast, whatever you choose to play, as we'll activate the Branded Fusion. Now we can send our Albaz along with the Lubellion in order to get our Albion. The Albion can then get us access into a Mirror Jade. There are obviously different options that you can play depending on the choices that you want to play in your deck, like if you do choose to play Mercarier, Branded Lost, and other stuff like that. The only reason I'm not doing that is because the Yubels do bring a lot of level 10s into the deck. Your Nightmare Pain needs to work with your other dark monsters that you need to pop and stuff, and then there's the Eternal Favorite, which isn't a necessarily great going first card either, without other cards you can set up with it. From here, we can then use the effect of the Branded Regained, which will put back the Albion for the Mirror Jade banish, as we'll then set the Eternal Favorite, go to the end phase where we can use the effect of the Samsara Regenerating Lotus for the tribute, as we'll then be able to use the effect of the Magna Hut, getting ourselves the Druis Worm, and we can end our turn on on this. Now, this is the second variant that I have, and you'll see that instead of the Geist Grinder Golem, I'm actually playing the Kaiju. And the reason for this is because the Geist Grinder Golem requires you to have a Yubel in hand, and funny enough, while we do have one here, it's just something that I don't think is very reliable for the pace of game that we're currently in if you want to try to bring the best out of this deck. So we're going to start here by activating our tip in the draw phase, and if you haven't noticed by now, it's Runic Yubel, and we're going to activate the Freezing Curse, which will allow us to special summon out the Munin, and then we can go to the main phase where we'll activate the Fountain, and you'll notice that I'm going to do something really greedy here, which I could have kept the Freezing Curse in hand, and then just special summoned out the Munin with the Slumber, and then get the 2 draws, while keeping that disruption. But the only reason I'm not doing that is because I just want to show what happens if we do get the draw 3. So we're going to be able to shuffle back all the runic spells into our graveyard as we banish a few from our opponent's deck. And now we'll be able to draw 3 as this draws us into combo pretty much as we get the Nightmare Pain, which can pop the Yubel. Then we can add ourselves the Eternal Favorite as we'll be able to special summon out the Yubel and then set the Super Poly along with the Eternal Favorite. Now the cool thing about this is if your opponent for whatever reason can't turn their stuff into defense position, they have to attack into Yubel, and it means that even though you skipped your battle phase, they still have to attack into it, so it kind of like nullifies the runic weakness, even if it is a slow and pretty gimmicky way to do so. Now, I want to do a full hand with the branded Bestial version, and this is just because I believe that there's a lot of flexibility for both versions of the deck, as you'll see with the list momentarily, but we're going to use the effect of Lubellion, as we'll then be able to get ourselves the Magnahide, go into our Lubellion off of the Branded Fusion, pitch the Prosperity since we don't need it for this hand, go into our Mirror Jade, we can then activate the Magnahide, banishing the Yubel, then we can special summon out the Magnahide as we'll be able to use the effect in order to get the search at the end phase along with special summoning out the Lubellion, and then we'll get our Branded Regain. We'll then set our Eternal Favorite, go on to the end phase where we can get the Druid Worm off of the Magnahide, and then on our opponent's turn, we can use the effect of the Eternal Favorite in order to bring back the Spirit of Yubel from our Banish Zone. So with all of the combos out of the way, we can get onto the deck profile, and the first thing that you'll notice is how I'm playing a pretty low Yubel count in regards to the cards that we're getting, where I'm not playing the Geist Grinder Golem, I'm not playing any of the other forms of Yubel. The Mature Chronicle is another card I'm not playing, and these are all cards that I feel are not too beneficial to the strategy and what it wants to do, because you want the most value that you can get out of each singular card. Having the ability to just brick on these while the Geist Grinder Golem specifically needs a Yubel in hand, I just wasn't feeling this piece of support for the versions of the deck that I made. Now, I would also like to go over the new draw spell, and this is a potential option in the future if we do get more level 10s and stuff, but for now, I really wouldn't bother too much with it. I think that the small world stuff with the Magician's Souls and the Illusion of Chaos is better, because since you're playing the Bestials, you can just bridge into whatever you need. And then we also have the Cosmo Dark Destroyer. I only show this because the Nightmare Pain says destroy one dark monster in your hand or face up field, and if you do, add one Yubel or one card that mentions it, except Nightmare Pain from your deck to your hand. Being able to synergize with any other dark deck that benefits off of destruction, like Dark Destroyer, can potentially make for some very interesting concepts in the future. You'll also notice I'm not maining the Kashtira stuff, and it's just because of the versions of the deck that I'm playing. And the same thing with the Allure and the Branded Beast. I think that the Branded Beast could maybe come in over time. I just don't know what I would really want to take out, and I'm also scared of adding that third trap in. Now, if there's one thing that you can point out which is a very positive thing about this deck, is not just the amount of going second space that you have with the fact that we're playing 9 generic going second cards, but then we also have 5 total Bestials that can end up being hand traps as well. But then we also have a lot of consistency in power cards that we have, like the Samsara Regenerating Lotus, the Nightmare Plane, plus the Spirit of Yubel. We have the Branded Fusion, The Magician Souls is a nice consistency card that can happen to get you into your Branded Fusion and other stuff through the Nightmare Pain being a card that you can send off of it once you resolve it, though it can end up being pretty contradictory to your strategy depending on what you go for, since sometimes you do want the Nightmare Pain to have your opponent attack into your Yubel, so that's also worth pointing out. That said, in a modern era, you're usually trying to just build the best board you can. Now, another going second card that I really didn't talk about that I should probably mention is Albaz, which would count it up to about 16 going second cards, and this is a normal summon that if you don't happen to get into your Lotus, you can go second, normal summon Albaz, potentially get into Mirror Jade through either Lubellion, Albion, or even just directly go into your Mirror Jade, and then fusion summon with any of your opponent's monsters that happens to be Fusion, Synchro Exceed, or Link for the Mirror Jade. So I think that that's something that this deck has going for it. Maybe there is room for some Link monsters as we are playing the Souls, though I don't really know what I would want to throw in there just yet, as I don't think that the Link Karibo or Anima are worth it. There is a chance that you can play something like Dark, but at the same time, a one of Dark I don't feel is worth it, where you can just end up tributing off the Souls for the Yubel and then keep the Samsara Lotus on board, which unfortunately you won't be able to get the special summon for the other forms of Yubel in this particular deck, but it's still important to note that it just gives you a little bit more flexibility in what you can do with your plays and how you approach this build. So with all of that out of the way, I'll just get onto the card by card, since I think the replays did the talking on what the deck does. And we have the 3 Samsara, the 3 Spirit of Yubel, the 3 Nightmare Pain, the 2 Small World, and the 1 Illusion of Chaos, 2 Lubellion, Saranir, and Druis Worm, the 2 copies of Fallen of Albaz, Branded Regain, the 2 copies of Eternal Favorite, the 3 copies of Branded Fusion, 2 OG Yubels, 2 Magician Souls, the 3 Talents, the 3 Super Polys, the 3 Drolls, and the 3 Magna Huts to round out the main deck. Onto the extra deck, we have Mud Dragon, Gurura, Magna, along with Dragos Depelia and Draco Equist for the Super Poly, and then we have Albion, Lubellion, 2 Mirror Jade, 2 Yubel Fusions, Chaos Angel, with stuff like Albaz and the Bestials, though do keep in mind that the Runic version is definitely better at employing this card and getting the benefits of having Hugin plus a potential Geist Grinder Golem if you choose to play that. Then we have the Gustav Max, we have Lieb, and the Zeus to round out the deck profile. Onto the Runic version of the deck, and I've clamped down, I think, even more on the engine on this one. I might be playing the same count actually, but you'll notice that instead of the Bestials, we just have the 3 Super Poly, 3 Talents, and a bunch of spell cards with the Kaijus to try and best employ this strategy. Now that said, if you want, you can play some of the level 10 Kaijus and then play the level 10 draw spell as well. I just don't think that you need it with the Runic stuff, and you also don't want to play too hard into Droll in my opinion. So we have the 3 Spirit of Yubel. I'm not going to do too much explaining about this deck just because it's very self-explanatory, where your Yubel cards are doing the same thing that you saw in the previous replays, and your Runic stuff is just an engine that allows you to get into potential disruptions to pair it along with your Yubel stuff. So then we have the 3 Nightmare Pain, the 2 Fountain, the 1 Storm, the 3 Freezing Curse, the 3 Destruction, the 3 Tip, the 3 Dogeron, the 2 Yubels, the 2 Eternal Favorite, the 3 Super Poly, the 3 Samsara, the 3 Talents, the 3 Slumber, and the 3 Flames to round out the main deck. Onto the extra deck, we have the 1 Sleipnir, and this is another really good card to go into your Chaos Angel with, because the Samsara is level 1, so if for whatever reason you don't want to use its effect and just go into your Chaos Angel instead, having the level 1 Dark and the level 9 Light is really solid. But then we have the Gary, the Munin, we have the 2 Hugin, the 1 Mud Dragon, Gurura, Magna, Dragos Depelia, the 2 Yubel Fusions, Chaos Angel, Max, Lieb, which I'm still playing because, again, you can get the burn damage, get an extra material for Zeus, and stuff like that, even if it is Runic. You should still consider that you will have times where you're going to have a battle phase, but then we have the Zeus, and that will round out the deck profiles. So for everyone who's made it this far, I'd like to thank you for watching and for the 600 plus subs. I truly appreciate your support. We've monetized the channel, giving us access to supers and memberships, which means that more awesome stuff is on the horizon. To get the channel membership, just click on the description below and there will be a link that takes you there. You'll also notice a free Discord link that I've made for us too. If you want to support me as a content creator, even if you can't donate supers or get a membership for the channel, clicking on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons help a lot too. For those wondering, I do plan on making updates to the channel as the support on the channel grows. Anyways, I hope to see you on the next one. It's Bones, signing out.